So the project I'm talking about is, in conception at least, very ambitious. What we've actually done has been fairly modest, and the sums of money spent so far have been quite small. But we're hoping, in the fullness of time, that we can find a way to establish integrated health information systems and medical record-keeping systems that will support immediate patient care, the care of the patient in the bed or in the clinic, continuing care, provide management information. And this needs not just to be for the benefit of the ministry, but at a local level, particularly for the central hospitals and the district health officers. It's very important that they have accurate and up-to-date data, which currently, by and large, they don't. Of course, the ministry needs decent statistics, and the current strategic plan issued by the Ministry of Health in Malawi quite explicitly acknowledges that the epidemiological databases that they work with are flawed and that the data is often very slow in coming in. And finally, of course, it is very important that you support research work as a sort of product of all of this. So findings of sort of different kinds. The one at the top of the slide I find frustratingly difficult to get hard information about. I was doing work in the field with Paul Lihoma from Zomba, and we visited a number of health centres, health posts, 3 of the central hospitals and so on. In various places we saw PCs, and we were even, mobile telephones had flourished at us. And we were told that these had been funded by basket funding by bilateral donors, approximately sort of 4 years ago or thereabouts. So a great deal of IT kit apparently was dished out, and it didn't ultimately deliver. I suspect that DFID was probably the largest single contributor to the cost of this, but when I asked the office in Lilongwe to provide anything at all by way of sort of concept documents from the start-up or reports on implementation or whatever, they more or less found the back of their hand terrifically interesting and then changed the subject. So it's a bit difficult to know what has gone on there. They would be really very helpful in looking to the future to know what happened and the circumstances in which it ceased to deliver. At the present moment, in the health system in Malawi, it seems to me that there are quite a range of islands of IT which by and large don't join up one with another. And many of them do good work, they produce good results, but for limited purposes, and there is no sense in which they constitute an integrated system. I think it's fair to say that some of the systems reflect donor interests, although the systems are, generally speaking, owned by the ministry. But they are seen as belonging to the government of Malawi. Nonetheless, I think there is a focus on, and I put on the slide HIV, on a variety of aspects of healthcare which do interest donors. It's quite noticeable that there's absolutely no external funding whatsoever that I can see for psychiatry, when you can't find anything at all in that area because it doesn't seem to interest donors. There's also a reflection of research priorities, and I think it's particularly true of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Blantyre. And the administrative concerns. I put labs on, but in fact probably more to the point, I've put pharmacy on because that does tend to be a real area of concern, not least because of the difficulty of keeping track of the products and knowing that they are actually being used for the purposes for which they were provided. There was an attempt at integrated inpatient record keeping at Queen Elizabeth Hospital under the SPINE programme, but that's not working terribly well at the present moment, and one of its difficulties is that it uses different software from almost all the other little islands of IT, so it is actually very difficult to integrate. Key players? Well, clearly the ministry has a sort of key role in all of this. The MLW unit in Blantyre has an interest, certainly. And certainly for the piece of work which I'm talking about, the work was done earlier in the year, they were tremendously helpful. They provided a base and an infrastructure of support for the work, which was hugely helpful. We found while we were there that the Christian Health Association has an established role and a particular interest in these matters. And the German International Development Agency also has an established role. How many people in the room are aware of the fiscal agent mechanism? Is that sort of common knowledge? Right, well basically, a significant part of the money that's being spent by the Ministry of Health in Malawi is controlled by implanted expatriate officials. At the present moment, it's a German who is actually there on a day-to-day basis, overseeing the expenditure of money from Germany, Britain, and Norway. And every 3 months, somebody from the Treasury comes out to check on his figures to make sure that he's doing his job properly. And on this basis, quite a lot of work is now being picked up again. There are a number of building projects which were halfway to completion when the Cashgate scandal blew up. And they are now moving forward again under this mechanism. But what's happening, of course, is that a significant degree of control has been transferred to outsiders in order to generate the revenue flow that is essential to make these projects happen. So, looking to the forward and thinking in a sort of positive and perhaps over-ambitious way, what we're looking for, I think, is affordable and quite possibly intermediate technologies. I suspect that an entirely IT-based, and certainly an IT as it is practiced in the West-based approach, may not be affordable and sustainable for the medium-term future. There are, after all, a great many Malawians who know how to read and write. And so some element in information management systems that consists of familiar technology with biros and paper, card, whatever, may possibly have a role. And looking to the future, I'm hoping that we'll get funding so that we can investigate some possible ways of doing this. Ideally working with the Germans, because they are already beginning a piece of work where they propose to digitise the registers, which are a more or less universal component of medical record keeping in Malawi. And these are simply bound books, and each entry is made in date order. So of course, on the day in which you write it, it's easy to find the information. 2 weeks later, it's practical. But 9 months later, it's virtually impossible to retrieve the contents. There's a huge amount of data being captured, but the retrieval of that data becomes progressively more difficult as time passes. And of course, integrating any of these data elements in the longer term can be very challenging. So there are various possible ways of going forward. We've been assured that CHAM, the Christian Health Association, which runs many of the places that used to be mission hospitals, and the German International Development Agency are both very happy to cooperate in this. And I think one lesson that we learnt from doing the work in the way that we did was that whilst it was hugely helpful to have Stephen Gordon and his colleagues at MLW providing us with the base, really, if this sort of work is going to be carried forward in the future, effectively, we need to be in Malawi, not in Blantyre. And that's enough of that.